My name's Jake. I'm 30 years old, and I've been married to Emily for nearly 6 years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was good. We were comfortable with each other, had our routines, and spent most of our time working, hanging out, and occasionally going out with friends. Nothing extraordinary, but we had what I thought was a stable, loving marriage. But recently, I started feeling something shift. At first, it was subtle, small things I brushed off. Emily was working more, coming home later, and when she did, she was always on her phone, texting or scrolling. I didn't think much of it. She had a high-pressure job in marketing, and I knew she had deadlines and clients to manage. So I was patient, but it kept going on. Every night she'd tell me she was too tired to hang out, or would make excuses not to spend time with me. I need to work on some things for tomorrow, she'd say, or I'm just going to relax with some Netflix. I'll join you later. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed, and I didn't want to make her feel worse. But when the days turned into weeks and the pattern repeated itself, I started to wonder if something else was going on. One day, I came home early from work. Emily was sitting on the couch like usual, but there was something different in the air. The moment I walked in, she quickly minimized her phone screen, almost like she was trying to hide something. "Hey," I said, trying to act casual. "How was your day?" "Busy," she replied, not looking up from the TV. "You know how it is. Same old." I nodded, but something in her tone felt off. I wasn't sure what it was, but the way she avoided my eyes just didn't sit right with me. The next few days, things only got weirder. I started noticing how frequently she was texting at odd hours, even when we were sitting on the couch together. Sometimes she'd get up and walk into the other room to finish a conversation, and when she came back, she'd act like nothing happened. One night, I decided to stay up late and watch TV while she was in the bedroom. After a while, I heard her phone buzz. It wasn't unusual for her to get messages late, but something made me lean over and check. I glanced at the screen. "Mark? Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be waiting." I didn't know who Mark was, but that text didn't sit well with me. I told myself I was overreacting, but as the days went by, the feeling only grew. It wasn't just the text messages. It was the constant secrecy, the way Emily would act nervous whenever I asked simple questions about her day or where she'd been. That same week, she had a late meeting at work, and I didn't think much of it. But when she came home, her clothes were a little more disheveled than usual, and she smelled different. It wasn't a bad smell, it was subtle, but I could tell it wasn't the perfume she usually wore. It smelled like a different cologne, something I definitely hadn't smelled before. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I couldn't ignore the growing pile of little things. Her late nights were becoming more frequent. She was always too tired for anything intimate. I started to wonder if something or someone else was draining her energy. I'd never been the type to snoop. Trust had always been the foundation of our relationship. But one night, I snapped. I couldn't shake the thought that something was wrong, and I couldn't just ignore it anymore. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. I'd never done this before, but it felt like the only way to get the truth. She always left it on the coffee table when she went to shower or change, so I grabbed it without thinking twice. The lock screen had a picture of us, which I'd taken on our anniversary 2 years ago. I tapped it and tried not to panic. Her messages were flooded with texts from Mark. The more I scrolled, the more my stomach twisted. There were casual messages at first, things like, "Hey, what's up?" and "miss you." But then I saw the real stuff, the stuff that broke me. "Last night was amazing," one message said. "I can't wait for our next time together." Then there was another, "We need to make more time for us. Let's not hide this anymore." I quickly put the phone back on the table, my heart racing. It was like my whole world flipped upside down. All these months of being in the dark, of trusting her blindly, and this was what I was faced with. Emily had been seeing someone else, and worse, she was in love with him. I quickly put the phone back on the table, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't process it all at once. The weight of the truth hit me in waves, and I didn't know what to do next. How long had this been going on? How could I have missed it? Why didn't she come to me? I had to confront her. I couldn't stay in this lie anymore. I didn't sleep much that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Everything I thought I knew about my life and my marriage was suddenly crumbling. I kept replaying the messages in my head. How long had this been going on? What was she thinking? Was she really in love with him? I didn't know how I was supposed to act when Emily woke up. I thought about pretending I didn't know, keeping the peace, but I couldn't. This was too big to ignore. I wasn't going to let it slide. The next morning, Emily was in the kitchen making coffee like it was any other day. I stood there, frozen for a second, trying to get a grip on myself. She didn't know that I knew, and part of me almost didn't want her to. But I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. "Good morning," she said, glancing up as I walked in. "Morning," I replied, my voice tight. "We need to talk." She stopped what she was doing, her face shifting slightly. She didn't look surprised, but she didn't look relaxed either. "Okay, about what?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I took a deep breath and blurted it out. "I saw your messages with Mark. I know about the affair." Her face went pale. Her hand trembled slightly, and she put the coffee mug down on the counter. "Jake? No, don't try to explain. I've seen everything." I wasn't yelling, but the frustration in my voice was clear. "I've seen the texts. I know what's been happening. You've been seeing him behind my back." She stayed silent for a moment, looking down at the floor. Her expression shifted from shock to guilt and then to something I couldn't quite read. Was she going to deny it? Lie? "I'm sorry," she finally said, her voice soft. "I didn't want you to find out like this. I never meant to hurt you." It was the same line I'd heard from people in the movies, from friends who'd been cheated on, but it didn't feel real coming from her. "You didn't mean to hurt me? Didn't mean me?" I repeated. "You've been sneaking around with someone else for God knows how long, and you didn't mean to hurt me?" She flinched at my words. "Jake, I never wanted to fall into this. It just happened." I clenched my fists at my sides, trying to keep it together. "It just happened? You didn't plan this, but you've been spending your nights with him, lying to me, pretending everything was normal while you were with someone else, and you think it just happened is a good excuse?" "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I was lost. I wasn't happy anymore. We drifted apart and Mark was there. He listened to me." I had to step back for a second. Her words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just apologizing for what she did, she was justifying it. The idea that she wasn't happy anymore, it didn't feel like a real explanation. It felt like an excuse. "So, because you weren't happy, you thought it was okay to sleep with someone else?" I shot back. "What about the vows we took, Emily? What about the commitment?" She wiped her eyes, looking guilty. "Jake, I know I messed up. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional too. He made me feel seen. You weren't around. You were busy, and I just felt alone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was telling me she was cheating because I was busy? I worked hard for us, for our future. I wasn't perfect, but I didn't deserve this, and I sure as hell didn't deserve her throwing excuses at me like she was the victim here. "I was here, Emily," I said through gritted teeth. "I've always been here, but you shut me out. You chose him. You didn't even come to me and talk about what was wrong. You just gave up." She seemed to break a little, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of it all was sinking in. I was confused. I didn't know how to fix things. I didn't know how to tell you I wasn't happy. "Well, you could have started by talking to me, instead of sneaking around behind my back." My voice was shaky now, the anger shifting into disbelief. She took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right. I'm sorry for all of it. I don't know if I can fix this, but I want to try, if you'll let me." "Fix this?" I asked, almost laughing, though I wasn't amused. "You can't fix this, Emily. This isn't something that gets fixed with a couple of apologies and a promise to change." I stood there for a moment, staring at her. This wasn't the person I married. This wasn't the woman I'd trusted with everything. "I don't know if I can keep going like this," I said, my voice quieter now. "I don't know if I can get past what you've done. It's too much." She looked like she was about to say something, but the words didn't come out. I didn't give her the chance. "I need space," I said, turning away. "I don't know what I want right now, but I need time to think." As I walked out of the kitchen, I could hear her calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I didn't know what the next step was, but I sure as hell knew that the life we had, the life I thought was real, was over. The days after the confrontation were a blur. I spent most of my time at work, keeping myself busy, pretending like everything was fine. But nothing felt fine. Every time I looked at Emily, I was reminded of what she'd done. It wasn't just the affair, it was the lies, the way she'd kept it all from me. The trust was shattered, and every time I tried to be around her, it felt like a reminder of how much had been broken. She was different now. The guilt was written all over her face. Every time I looked at her, it was like I could see her second-guessing herself. I could hear her apologize over and over, but the words felt empty. She'd been saying all the right things, but I didn't feel any of the sincerity I needed to hear. She'd cry, tell me she was sorry for everything, and beg for another chance. I knew she was trying to fix it, but nothing she did could undo what had been done. I couldn't stop thinking about Mark. I didn't know who he was, what he looked like, or how long their relationship had been going on. But it didn't matter. The fact that she had been with him instead of me, that was the thing I couldn't shake off. I spent hours thinking about it, replaying the moments when I was blind to it all. I wondered if there were more signs I missed, if I could have done something differently. But no matter how much I thought about it, nothing made sense. It wasn't my fault. She made the choice, not me. The silence between us grew thicker. Every conversation felt strained. We were both walking on eggshells, trying to avoid the inevitable, what was going to happen next. The idea of fixing things seemed so far out of reach. It wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about whether I could even look at her the same way again. One night, I found myself standing at the door of our bedroom, listening to her cry on the other side. I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to comfort her, but at the same time, I wanted to walk away from it all. It was like I didn't even know who she was anymore. "Jake," I heard her voice crack through the door. "Please, can we just talk?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to, but I wasn't sure if I had the energy to listen anymore. Finally, I opened the door. She was sitting on the bed, wiping away tears. She looked exhausted, like she'd been holding everything inside for too long. "I don't know if I can fix this," she said quietly, "but I want to try. I know I've hurt you, and I don't know how to make it right. But please, don't give up on me." I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if I wanted to fix it. It felt like a never-ending cycle of apologies and promises, and I couldn't see a way out of it. "Emily, I don't know what you want from me," I said, my voice low. "I don't know if I can just forget this. I don't know if I can pretend everything is okay." She took a shaky breath and looked down at her hands. "I don't expect you to forget. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you, Jake." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something inside me kept pulling me away from her. Every time she said she was sorry, it felt like a temporary fix for something that was too broken to be repaired. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice growing more frustrated. "It's not just about saying sorry, it's about trust. It's about what you've taken from me. And right now, I don't know if I can ever get that back." She nodded, looking crushed. I know I've ruined everything. I don't blame you for being angry, Jake. I just wish you could see that I'm not this person who betrayed you. I don't want to be that person anymore." It was like she was pleading for me to believe her, and part of me wanted to. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd hidden the truth from me for so long. She'd chosen to keep this a secret, to betray me behind my back. And now she was asking me to believe she was sorry, but it felt like I was the only one still stuck in the past. "I don't know if I can do this," I said finally. "I don't know if I can keep living in this, whatever this is. You're asking me to forgive you, but I don't know if I can." We sat there in silence for a long time. Neither of us knew what to say. Eventually, I stood up and walked out of the room. I didn't have any answers. I didn't know what was going to happen next. All I knew was that everything had changed, and I wasn't sure if it could ever go back to what it was before. The days passed, and things didn't get better. Emily continued to apologize, continued to try to show me she was remorseful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was only doing this for her, not for myself. I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending that things were okay, Every moment I spent with her felt like a reminder of the lie she'd been living. And deep down, I knew I had a decision to make. Could I learn to trust her again? Could I ever be the same person I was before all of this? Or was it already too late?